the absence of our clerk, I would ask the council to approve Angie Thomas as a temporary clerk, who will also act in her capacity as a council member tonight. So
You're sure?
we have a motion by, well, there she is. I appreciate the motion. We will present on it. Thank you.
Voted now. No.
Sorry, Rick.
That's all right. Okay, a special meeting is called under provisions of Chapter 24.020, requested by council members Nipko and Raymer of the ordinances of Holden, Missouri, that the special meeting will be conducted on August 20th at 7 p.m. So the meeting is called to order. We'll have a roll call, please.
Bradley?
Here.
Nipko?
Here.
Thomas? Here. Weeks? McDaniel? Kramer? Gilchrist?
Here.
Parker?
Here.
Okay. Okay, the floor is open for public comment. Anyone like to speak on an ordinance that the meeting was called for pertaining to the collection of license fees and the effect of short notice given to the Holden Fair vendors under ordinance 54.100?
I would like to speak.
Yes, sure. Your name, please.
Carrie Hutcherson is my name, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce and as one of the Fair Board Chairmen. I have references that I'll give you all after I speak on my points tonight, but I just wanted to make a few points on behalf of the Fair Board on why we believe that these fees should not apply to city vendors in this case. It is our interpretation, I do have a copy of the full ordinance. It was not given to us when we were given a letter that it applied to us, but I looked it up and did copy off a full copy of the ordinance, and we are referencing 54.100. It's our interpretation that the intent of the law was written for businesses that are open year-round, and I'm referencing section 54.010. It discusses licenses to be issued, and I quote, for one calendar year. Each renewal applicant shall apply for and pay for the required license in January of each year. Such license shall be delinquent in February. There is a specific business listing in the ordinance of about any business that you can imagine listed from A to Z. There is no other category listed in the businesses. All of those businesses have annual fees except for 3, which are auctioneers, carnivals, and circuses. All other businesses are listed with an annual fee. So to our interpretation, the founders or the people that wrote the ordinance did not intend for it to apply to special event vendors. To our knowledge, since the inception of this ordinance in 1988, vendors have not been required to make an application for a business license or to pay a fee to the city. This has set the precedence over the last 27 years, and since it hasn't ever applied, it would seem to imply that the original purpose of the ordinance was for typical businesses within city limits. The fair is not and has never been a fundraiser for the chamber. I think that's a clarification that we want to make. The chamber does good to end the fair in the black. We've lost money on several occasions. The chamber has always sponsored the fair as a benefit to the community. We look at it, the chamber members look at it as a way to give back to the community that gives our businesses so much throughout the year. All vendors that participate in the fair complete a sales tax event form that goes to the state taxation department, and it also goes in with Holden sales tax revenues for the month. So we believe that the city does have a benefit from the increased sales tax revenue that is experienced during the fair. Multiple vendors, we contacted them after we received the mayor's letter to see if any of their events that they participate in require a city license or a permit in any other town, to see what the precedence is for this. They indicated they have never had to buy a city license separate in any other town, even when those towns have ordinances that require it. All food vendors do have a special requirement through the county health department to make sure that they meet health code standards. It is our belief that the fair is an event that benefits our community and is widely enjoyed by the citizens of Holden and many surrounding communities. There is a good chance that asking vendors for the fair and any other event to pay a separate license fee and complete a city application each year will have a negative effect. All of us involved in civic organizations have a desire to present a positive image of our community regardless of the event. If there is a chance that this ordinance could be received negatively by those participating, then you have to ask yourself whether the benefits would outweigh the negativity. If the council should determine and decide that the business permit fee should apply to special event vendors at the fair, then we feel, or it really should be applied to tractor pull vendors, concession stand vendors at the ballpark, rodeo concession vendors, etc. So your decision tonight will impact much more than just the fair. The full impact of your decision will impact all future events in Holden should it be, so please take that into consideration before any action is taken. And if after full consideration, the council should decide a business license fee applies to special event vendors, we would ask for it to begin in 2016. Vendor contracts have already been submitted and paid. As stated before, the vendor fee that is paid isn't enough to submit an additional $20 to the city, and I will say that that $20 is the annual fee that most businesses that are open all year pay to the city. So we don't feel it would be appropriate to go back to our vendors and ask for this additional fee. If you were to apply an annual fee to special event vendors, it appears they would have to specifically fit into the one of the categories I discussed before. So who would make this determination? What business does a local craft booth fall under? Or a pony ride? How about a local church selling tickets as a fundraiser and trying to share gospel in the process? Would all of these vendors be charged the same fee, or would someone have to determine what category they fall into? It could be argued that since Carnival is specifically listed in the ordinance, the chamber could apply for and purchase an event license under this broad category. And if that is the case, all of the vendors would fall under that license, and the daily fee would cover all of the participants. However, for the same reason mentioned above, we would ask that this fee be made effective for the 2016 fair. Since the fee has never been assessed in prior years, the chamber had no way to budget for that expense, but we would do so for all future years. The fair takes the dedication of many community volunteers that do not require or accept any kind of fee for the many hours that it takes to plan and ensure that the event is a success and enjoyed by all that come to participate. Many employers that have volunteers on their staff allow their employees to use company time to work on some of the things required. We understand that the city also contributes a lot to the success of the fair. We recognize the additional man hours that are given by police and city employees. We would ask the city recognize that the additional tax revenue generated by the vendors helps to offset this additional expense. Many of the businesses that pay their employees to help plan these events do not get that same return. Regardless of the decision for the fee, we would ask that the council commit the full support from the city by allowing assistance from the police and street department as in years past. The fair has never been advertised as the Chamber of Commerce Fair. It is known throughout Johnson County and neighboring counties as the Holden Fair. If we don't all work together for success of the fair and we ask vendors to pay an additional fee less than a week before the start of the event, it will reflect badly on the city, the chamber, and all of us individuals that have dedicated so much time to the success of this event. It would be a shame to have such good organizations and people, along with the entire city of Holden, have reputations harmed by the last-minute enforcement of an ordinance that has never applied to this event since its inception 27 years ago. The Holden Fair has enjoyed a long-standing history of cooperation among many organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce and the city. It is only with this spirit of cooperation that any event in our city can be successful. Getting notice that an ordinance has been on the books for so long was suddenly going to be applied to our fair vendors at such late notice, less than 2 weeks prior to the start of the fair, is not in line with the spirit of cooperation that has been a long-standing tradition. It makes one wonder what has happened to create more of a spirit of competition than cooperation. I'm hopeful that everyone here this evening will do what is in the best interest of the city as a whole. As the mayor and city council members, your job is to listen to both sides and make a decision that benefits the city. I'm hopeful that as a representative of the Fair Board, I have pointed out that applying this ordinance and annual license fee to each street vendor is questionable at best and could have a detrimental effect not only to the fair, but to the entire city. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
I would follow up your comments with a couple of other comments, clarification in some cases. First of all, the tractor pull vendors do pay $50 to participate at the tractor pull. Okay?
Is that as a license fee or is that as our vendors pay event fee?
20 of it goes to purchase the city license fee, vendor fee, and the other half goes into general revenue for the city.
Okay.
Secondly, the city did volunteer to take the leadership in advising the vendors of the requirement for the license. We asked for the names and addresses of the vendors so that we could mail them a letter from the city, not the chamber, advising them of this ordinance that we felt existed.
And when was this done?
The council met the 11th. On the 12th, the letter was constructed. The letter was mailed on the 12th. It was also hand-delivered to the fair committee at the Methodist Church that afternoon. So it was as timely as we could get it following the council meeting. And in that letter, we did volunteer to take the leadership in notifying the vendors of that ordinance. Okay?
Would you mind my asking a real quick question? What brought the ordinance up at such a late date? If this, as I said, it's never applied before.
Okay.
And so I'm just curious, we've been working on the fair since the fair ended last year, so
That's a
there
good
should have been plenty of time.
Right, that's a good question. In July, the city council reactivated an ordinance calling for the finance committee to once again start meeting after an absence of over 20 years for the purpose of monitoring revenue and expenses of the city.
Right.
Sensing the council's desire to reactivate the finance committee, at which I was personally held accountable because it had not been meeting, and I was following tradition from when excuse me, Ms. Barrett, would you like to say something, or?
No.
Okay. Please keep your gestures to yourself, then, please.
I didn't make any gestures.
I beg to disagree, and I'm not going to argue with you.
No, you're not.
Sensing the council's desire to exercise a fiduciary responsibility, I pointed out at the August 11th council that there was an ordinance that called for $20 vendor fee and a carnival fee. Well, in my mind, since it was a fiduciary responsibility of the finance committee, and I felt that they were asking more oversight, more responsive monitoring of revenue and expenses, I pointed out that, in a sense, the city had been subsidizing the Holden Fair for many years, when in fact this ordinance was in place. For example, last year's police bill to the city for overtime was $2,200. There were many hours of comp time given to our maintenance department, street department, for putting up barricades, doing all the trash, etc. So this small $20 fee would help the city offset some of the cost that the city was incurring and had been incurring for many years. Why this ordinance had not been implemented, carried out, etc., is pre my time here, since 1986. So at the August 11th council meeting, when the ordinance was brought up, there were no voices of opposition. There was one strong vote of support. In other words, I asked for council direction to go ahead and enforce the ordinance, and since I received no negative, I assumed that they were supportive of the ordinance. And so I refer everyone here tonight to the August YouTube City Council meeting where all of this is on record. Now we're meeting to discuss an ordinance, again at a taxpayer expense, special council meeting, cost the city about $80 for a special meeting. So the finance committee that wanted to monitor expenses and revenues of the city chose not to voice any opposition to the ordinance when it was brought up that, hey, here's a way to help get some revenues back into the city to offset the expenses. So,
Do you think it would have been a fair way to approach it if you would have just let the fair board know 2 weeks before the fair that this ordinance was in place and that since it had never applied before, you would apply it to the 2016 fair rather than having it apply to a fair that was going to take place in 2 weeks?
that would have been a council decision at which they were given the opportunity to voice that opinion and chose not to. I don't know
Well, I
that
don't
it's
think
the
anybody
mayor.
really ever understood the ramifications of what happened that night until we received the letter and started voicing our concerns on what it would do. I think the overall impression is that the chamber makes a lot of money on this event, and that it's a fundraiser for the city, for the chamber, excuse me. And it in fact is not a fundraiser.
I don't know that the city has ever said that or voiced that in any way, shape, or form. I don't have that impression. I have no idea what the...
If you were a 3-day vendor that was here selling a craft for the city, would you think that it was equitable to pay the same fee that a business that is open 365 days a year pays?
That does happen. We have plumbers in Warrensburg that have to buy a city license, pay the $20. They may have one call in Holden during the year. I pick on that because I know that that's the case. Anyone that lives in Warrensburg, Sedalia, Odessa, wherever that comes to Holden, does business in the city limits, is required to buy a vendor's fee. Anyone, if they want to do business.
I could be mistaken, but I never saw it in the ordinance where it was called a vendor fee. It was a city license.
Right,
So-
I'm sorry. I mean, they're one and the same. Yes.
Regardless of what's wrong or right, the council, or the list council was never meant to, the timing was bad. And it was too close to the time of the fair after they'd already elected the fee.
Well, excuse me, Sam, just if you, we're not saying the chamber should have collected the fee.
No, I'm
The
not saying that
city
either.
would have collected
No,
the
no,
fee.
I'm saying the timing for the city or anybody to collect that extra fee, it was too close. They should have been notified a long time before.
This wasn't stated at our August 11th meeting.
I'm going to move that we table this, collecting of fees on this till after the 2015 fair.
We have a motion to table the fee for the 2015 fair. I'll second. Councilman Gilchrist seconds the motion. We have a first and a second to table the fee for the 2015 fair. Roll call vote, please.
Bradley?
Yes.
Nimco?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weeks?
Yes.
McDaniel?
Yes.
Rayford?
Yes.
Gilchrist?
Yes.
Larkin?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the application for a sidewalk project from the New Life Fellowship Church here in Holden. We have an ordinance which allows up to 50% of the cost to be paid by the city. We put that back in the budget this year. They are asking, did they get copies?
No.
They are asking to, get the numbers here. They're asking to do I assume give you head copies, I'm sorry, I'll have to. Okay.
Total projects.
Yeah, the total project cost is $1,220 from materials only. They are requesting 50% of that total, and this would involve 12 yards of concrete, 480 square feet, and the address on that is 400 South Main, which is on the east side of their existing church.
How many yards of concrete?
12.
And how much was the total cost of materials?
1,220, of which they will provide the labor.
In other words, they're asking for the concrete only, or?
Yes, concrete only, half of the concrete cost, and they have it tabulated at $1,220.
How long is it?
What was that?
How long?
How long's the sidewalk?
It's the whole, let's see, it's from the alley to the street on the borders of church.
It's about a half a block, that way.
Right, half a block.
Maybe just a little bit more. A little bit.
And you have a sidewalk project.
122
Line item in the budget.
Yes, there is a sidewalk line item in the budget, $5,000, of which this cost to the city would be $610.
In the ordinance, is all the council members up to speed on the ordinance? Is there a time frame for taking applications for the sidewalk project, or is it just submitted and then it's brought before the council?
Submitted and brought to the council.
Okay, well,
Normally, it's not brought to the council, but in this case, it is.
They used to go out for bids.
right, I've got the
They have their
ordinance
own contractor.
in front of me. It says
So
the
we
city
can
will
go-
pay up to 50%, so the council could make a recommendation of less than 50%. Being a new council member, I would like to possibly table this item so everybody can read over the ordinance and get up to speed on the ordinance and look through their neighborhoods and see if there's any other sidewalks that they think might need fixing. And then the way the reason I say that, Mayor, is the way the ordinance reads is it shows at the end of the ordinance it asks for the council members to prioritize the construction projects that have been turned in.
Let me read their letter to you, to the council. Dear Mayor and City Council, this letter is requesting matching funds from the Sidewalk Project Fund of the City of Holden. New Life Fellowship has approved to replace the sidewalk located in front of New Life Fellowship, 4th and Main to the alley, which is approximately 120 feet in length. All labor will be volunteer labor from our church, which includes a union concrete man and a retired union concrete man, as well as many other volunteers. It is our request that the city pay for 50% of the materials only, which is about $650. Signed, Michael Wakeman, pastor of New Life Fellowship.
So it's 120 feet long, and the sidewalk's supposed to be 4 foot wide for the American Disabilities, correct?
That is correct. They will follow city code on sidewalk projects.
And it's gonna be poured 6 inches thick?
That is not in their application. It's whatever the code calls for, and I've got the code here.
You're gonna look at it, 9 yards of concrete,
Okay.
How thick?
6 inches. They use a 2 to 6. They
So
use
it
a
would
2 to
be
6
up
on the lid.
it would be up to the $650. They're saying which is about $650 in their letter. So if it's less, it's less, but it would be half of the materials only.
They putting rebar in it?
Yes. It'll have to be an approved sidewalk by the city engineer.
Could I read the end of the ordinance? It says, the city shall take into account the following factors: the location of the sidewalk, the condition of the existing sidewalk, if any, the number of people benefited by the sidewalk, whether the new sidewalk is part of new construction, whether the proposed sidewalk is in a commercial or residential area, the the cost of the project, the amount budgeted for the sidewalk repair, the amount of financial resources available to the city, which you mentioned, we have $5,000 in a line item. So the way I read it, the council is the ones that should approve this, which you are submitting it to us, but I also took it that there's a time frame in which these are submitted to the city, and then the city looks at all the needs of the city and then votes on the ones that are the most important or prioritized.
So if we follow your interpretation, we would wait until the end of the fiscal year, collect all the project proposals, and prioritize them.
Possibly. That's why I asked if there's a date, like do we take applications up to a certain time and then say, okay, we're gonna look at all the proposed applications and then
That's
make
not-
recommendations.
It's my understanding that's not the way this project has operated in the past. But we can certainly change direction with a new council.
I know the few times that I was on the council where we did have sidewalk requests, they normally came in one at a time, and they kind of folded in during the year. They didn't come in at any group or anything like that. There weren't multiple requests that we had to consider. It was usually just one request, and we looked and see whether there was money budgeted, and decided if we wanted to go ahead and go to the maximum 50%, or if we felt that it was more appropriate to, again, based on available funds. Because sometimes later in the fiscal year, funds get kind of low. And that's what we have done historically, is that we've approved them as they came in, primarily based on available funds. And the time of the year, or how much budget year was left.
I just wanted the council to be aware of the ordinance and how it reads so they can make a informed decision. I'm not against the sidewalk at all.
How many suppliers here are on the sidewalks? We have money to do this.
Yes. There's 5,000 line item in the budget. In the past, as Jim said, when the money's gone, we take no more applications.
It's a church willing to upgrade the sidewalk, make it look better. I'll make a motion to pass for it.
I would ask Doyle if you would mind making that motion that we base our payment on the invoice provided to the city. Because they may not use as much as they anticipate they're going to use.
Up to 650.
Up to that suggested level, but based on an actual invoice. You show us the invoice for the concrete, which is what you're asking us to pay for, is that right?
Yes, that's reasonable.
Now, you give us the invoice and
Okay, we have a motion to approve up to $650 for this concrete project. Do I hear a second?
based on the invoice presented.
Got that down? Okay, she's got it. Do I hear a second? Second by Council Member Thomas. We have a first and second to approve the sidewalk project. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I move for adjournment.
Motion by Councilman Hinkle to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Harvey. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?